I will talk about, I will present the school climate and violence prevention program that we have initiated in Israel. So I will share a manner in which we work with data, that's what Rachel asked me, which allows us to adjust the program to each school as well as to implementation and training program for the staff in the schools. So no school left behind. Does it sound familiar? Yeah. It's a paraphrase on the program in the US, No Child Left Behind. I choose to refer the Israeli program by this name because our unit of intervention is the school, as you will see later. Okay, so I just want to ask you beforehand, how do you feel this morning? How did you sleep? You can't hear me? Better? I think it's a small room. Anyway. How do you feel this morning? When you came here? Because I'm trying to think about your needs. When you came to Israel, when you woke up in Haifa, when you drive here. So can you just throw out in the air some needs you feel? Anybody? What are your basic needs this morning? Sleeping, okay. Really basic needs. Anything else? Because the base of our program is developmental needs. Based on Desi and Larson, every pupil has a core needs and wellness need. Core needs, this is the base fundamental needs that we build our program of. So I want to present it. Core needs are the sense of security. You see here, I lost my, you recognize? You love it?
It's corresponding to what I love.
Okay, good. So we are just be fluent for one another. So core needs, if you can see, is connectedness, sense of value, and security, of course, the first one. Core needs are, the student have to fulfill his core needs. He has to have a positive, balanced, emotional state mind without any negative and distribution. So you see every side of the core needs. You have an interpersonal. I see it's different from my computer. Okay, never mind. Interpersonal outcomes and intrapersonal outcomes. The interpersonal outcomes of core needs that every student have to have so he can be free to study, free to learn. His mind will be free. The interpersonal is positive attitude towards school and society, which is one of the prevention of violence. The other side, the intrapersonal, is the balance and emotional states of mind. He'll be relaxed, he can study, he can learn, he can be with his friends. Excuse me. When a person has his core needs fulfilled, he can also aspire to fulfill his wellness need, which I'm really fluent in Hebrew in this, so you know. I know it by heart. The wellness need, if you fulfill your core needs, you can go up to wellness needs. Self-fulfillment, competence, and autonomy. If you have that needs, and it's harder to achieve, you have interpersonal outcomes, contribution to school and community activities, and motivation and development, growth, and creation, the intrapersonal need. So, I'm sorry. It all means we cannot afford ourselves to measure and treat only violence at risk behavior. If you can see from that, we cannot only go to treat violence. We have to address needs and positive psychology in school. That was it. We must promote positive and safe climate in school. Enable students to feel accepted, connected, and valued. The assumption is that welcome and wanted students will not try to hurt the school system. Indeed, research proved that this is the case. It was found that student negative perception of school is correlated to involvement in violence and low academic achievement. So, what do we mean when we talk about school climate? Forgive me a minute, I have to go to I want to show you a short section of the film. You all know Freedom Writers. יומני החופש, Freedom Writers, back in 2000. Okay. אין תרגום, but just...
I brought my lesson plans. I love it. Now these are the classes. Freshman English, 4 classes about a
Can you hear?
A little louder.
Some of them are just out of
There we go.
1 or 2 might be wearing ankle close to monitoring their words. And you see here, we'll have to revise your lesson plans. Look at their scores. These vocabularies, some of these books, Homer's The Odyssey. All right. Also, for most of you get here, it takes 3 buses, almost 9 minutes each way. Oh my God. So I wouldn't give them too much of a homework load. It's not wasting a lot of time following on over to work. All right. Thank you. You're from Newport Beach? Yes. Too bad you weren't here even 2 years ago. We used to have one of the highest scholastic records in the district. Since voluntary integration was suggested, we've lost over 75% of our strongest students.
Well, actually, I chose wasn't because of the integration program. I think what's happening here is really exciting, don't you? My father was involved in the civil rights movement, and I remember when I was watching the LA riots on TV, I was thinking of going to law school at the time, and I thought, God, by the time you're defending a kingdom in a courtroom, the battle's already lost. I think the real fighting should happen here in the classroom.
Well, that's a very well thought out phrase. Erin, I think you're a lovely, intelligent woman. You're a first-time teacher. As head of this department, I have to be confident you're capable of dealing with what we have to face here.
I am. I know I have a lot to learn as a teacher, but I'm a really good student. I am, and I really want to be here.
Those are lovely girls.
Thank you. That's from my father.
I wouldn't wear them to class.
Okay. Second. So, in 2.5 minutes, this teacher, realizing what kind of school climate she has in school, can you think about what the vibe she feels from the head manager? The last word, what she said, lovely pearls. Yeah. You wouldn't need much more than that to recognize what kind of school climate they have there, even before she sees the class, her students, and all the neighborhood. So, what would it mean when we talk about school climate? This is the definition we use in the US and in Israel. Refer to the personality of school, or the heart and soul of school, and its unique characteristic. When I work like 12 years in this program, whenever I enter the school gates, I can feel the climate of the school without even understanding it. I can feel it in my body. It's something more even strong when, to recognize. You really feel it in your gut. Then when you talk with the people, you understand it. But it's really some personality that each school has, each system has. It's the atmosphere one can feel while entering the school gates, and it's really something that I feel. It concludes students, parents, and school personnel, norms, belief, relationship, teaching and learning practices, as well as organizational and structural features of the school. We are aiming at a positive school climate, and it's not an easy job. As you can see, there are so many ingredients in this definition. So when we talk about improving school climate and implementing the life skill program, the ESL, is a national objective accompanied by a assigned budget. So we have to have the budget. Of course, it went down a little bit per years, but it's very important to Israel. I want to tell you, before we start, really the data, the graphs, the norms, the system, long and short processes. I just want to talk about one girl so we understand why we are doing what we are doing. Dana is a 14-year-old girl who just moved with her mom to a small town from a big city following her parents' divorce. They moved to a smaller apartment since the economic status went down, deteriorated, just 2 days before school starts. At first day at school, she entered the school gates. The teacher's supervisor, standing there, referred to her lack of uniform and angrily remarked, "First day of school and already no uniform? It's outrageous." Two girls looking at her and laughing, and she feels they are making fun of her. When she enters the classroom, other students who heard about the incident at the school gate looking at her and whispering. At the recess that day, Dana is wondering what can she do and considering leaving school. Finding those dropout students to make friends whom she can turn to. Now we all can recognize the path of risk Dana might take in this scenario. We'll get back to her later and understand how can we help from the system point of view to help Dana. So, a little bit of the evolution of violence in Israeli history, historical background. There was violence all the time, all the years, but only in 1999, school violence was seen as a major problem. The shift in public awareness was due to intense international media in the US and in Israel and even in Europe in the 90s. Media in Israel also started to show regular stories of school violence, stabbing in school. Now in 1998 to 1999, there was a public committee led by Professor Ben-Benisti, you know about him, that made a series of important recommendations that are still applied today. Now, Israeli concern also led to a national research in 2005 by Professor Ben-Benisti to assess the magnitude of the problem and suggested new policies of intervention. The findings suggested that Israel indeed had a serious school violence problem, especially moderate physical violence. In parallel effort, the psychological counseling services, what we call SHEFI, the Israeli guys know it, began organizing a system, this is what I will present now, designed to address the problem of violence. The main direction was to move from local packages program to tailor intervention that are based on school data and are part of school way of life. So you can see the evolution. So if you can see the current Israeli program unique characteristic, it is holistic, comprehensive, school-based and going program, national school data. All the schools in Israel are going through some kind of data programs. All the schools in Israel. This is the unique part of Israel program. It's not only one district, it's only certain kind of school, all schools. Include monitoring of school violence, study, students' sense of belonging and their autonomy. So it's not only violence, but the positive side of the climate. Various monitoring system, everything that marks on blue I will explain later. Long-term database of school climate. We have about 15 years, 12 years of database. We can review and direct to a plan and orientation. Based on agreed national standards of school climate and based on ecological theory. And so we formed the program according to the monitoring results. So we have standards, we have long-term database, we have monitoring system. So I showed you. Okay, the main Israeli program is a proactive method and reactive method. The Proactive methods in plan, consistent, and long-term strategy which promotes safe climate and wellness in the school system. But at the same time, we cope with crisis, threat, violent students, and those involved in risk-taking behavior. So we have the proactive and reactive, the same program. As I said in the beginning, school is the center of our work and attention. We think that in order to reduce violence, you have to create a certain condition in the school. It is a very, very hard job, I can tell you, from my own experience, which must be well planned and consistent. You have to understand that it will not happen in one day or not even in 1 year. It is an ongoing process. Building the basic taking at least 3 years. When a mentor is entering a school to implement the program, he's entering for 3 years. Each year has a different scale. Maintaining the process and last long in the school. At the same time, we must not neglect students who need our special attention and treatment. We have to deal with that always because it always surprises us. We never anticipate them. Therefore, we must acquire a knowledge of dealing with emergency. I'm going to skip this. Okay. Remember I talked about standards, what we follow implementing the program. So we can see now, we have 7 standards in which we follow. Each school in Israel has to follow these 7 standards to implement the program for a positive climate and violence prevention. And you can see this kind of level, student level, multicultural environment level, and teachers level, they touch each one of them. So the directive defined, general manager, and the directive defined an explicit standards. What should be done to achieve these standards, and how to monitor the degree in which they are achieved. So it's also the standard, and how do I achieve it? For each of these standards, the directive defined the goal and the behaviors school can take to achieve the standard. This includes safety, positive communication, social emotional learning. Now last year, we implemented social emotional learning program, which we discussed the emotional values which comes in the classroom while learning. What are our emotions that evolve while we study? It was very interesting, especially for teachers. Fostering positive academic climate, providing effective response to special needs students, building school parents community relationship, and good physical school setting. So you can see from this we have 7 standards we have the baseline for our program. One of the methods we used to create the above-mentioned standard was open space methodology. You all know the open space methodology? When you ask people to think about subjects they are interested in, and that will be the subject that will be discussed. They are the manager of the subject, and people, they are advertise themselves in the room, right? And they call for people. I'm interested in social-emotional learning. So whoever is interested in that subject will come to me and we will discuss it. It's a very famous, I think, open space methodology, and it's called for people what they are interested in, not what they want, but their interests. So with large, varied group of 200 participants, there was people from the police, police, education, government, many people from different kind of systems, and they were dealing with it in open space methodology. And the question was raised, how to make school a home for learning. By the way, if you see the developmental needs, what I talked before, started for how as a good function home function, a good home function. Each child need to have his developmental needs at home. So they took the developmental needs and put it in school because they need to have the same developmental needs, and also teacher have. If you need to be safe, teacher needs to be safe. If you need to be valued, teacher needs to be valued. So we start with that. I want to make an example, the communication. Standard 2, positive communication definition is school promote caring relationship between all participants, the secretary, the manager, the gatekeeper, promotes a sense of belonging and connectedness. A sample of measures to be taken: dialogue training, personal conversation, feedback practices. So for each of one, we have a sample, what we have to achieve and how we have to do it, the way to achieve it. So you can organize it in 3 sectors: school organization, regular routines, and work environment, which you can put. The quality of relationship between insider and outsider in the organization. And last one, the existence of developmental program for emotional, social, and value studies. So you can see how we can organize that. And it's beforehand the data. So we have also, remember, we have standards, we have developmental needs, and we have guidelines, where we have to follow while implementing the program. And these guidelines are effective general program every school has to look at when implementing the program. One of them is inter-process combination of building relationship and a sense of protection. Relationship and protection, it's always these 2 sides, relationship and protection, wellness and protection. Database program, which I will show you. Program management by the principal and staff. Of course, the principal, we always, when we enter school to implement the program, it's always with the principal. It is never just with the teachers, because it will never work without him or her. Appointed time for climate discussion. They have to have a committee that discuss climate every 2 weeks. It's not just something that you see in school. You have to discuss it. You have to implement it by discussion. Sharing programs development with school community. Working on well-being and interrelation of the staff. Usually when a mentor of the program is coming to school, he always works with the staff. We don't work with the kids. We work with the staff. The staff is the change mentor, the change shaliach. Messenger, yes. You see? That's what happened when my memories also. Long-term program which is entwined with existing organization construction. We never just come to a school and say, this is the program, you have to erase everything you have until now. We implement it and entwine it with the program existing in school with the capabilities of school. And enhancing adult emotional and physical wellness. So this is the guidelines for the, and we also, I mentioned, I don't want to put the ecological theoretical model. I don't want to get into it because we don't have a lot of time. I see my time is running out. So I want to show you how does the program work. So first thing is recruitment. Oh, everything is changed from my computer. I'm sorry. It was really nice on my computer. So this is the magic circle. I call it the magic circle of planning and implementing school climate, positive school climate. We have to recruit. We have to recruit the manager. We have to recruit the teachers. We have to recruit all the staff to be able to go with this program. And then we have to assess the school. We have various of assessment tools, which I show you in a while. And we start with assessment. They either have the data from the past, or that we are trying to do the data online while they are starting the program. Selection and training staff, and then implementing the program, again, collecting data, and back again. Every 3 years we're going through the magic circle so we can check what we did and we can check if it's working, if it's implementing. So who is doing that? We have human resource aspects. national supervisors in 7 districts. Israel is, the Minister of Education divided Israel to 7 districts. Our Haifa district is the smallest. We are Betik, that's what I say. So every district has a supervisor who in charge of this program. We are training around 220 schools mentors who instruct schools throughout the process. I remind you, 3 years in a row. And then we are training school mentors of 100 schools, you don't see it here, of School in Focus. School in Focus as a school who have the lowest data in terms of violence. So we focus on them and then we specialize in this school. So this is so what are the monitoring systems? We have 3 main monitoring systems. Meitzav, it's Hebrew, that's why it's called, it's an initial. The first one is the I will go to national monitoring. It is randomized. We choose 25,000 children all over Israel and 2,500 teachers. It's a lot of students and teachers. And every 2 years, we choose them randomly, 2 classes in each school. And we mainly, we focus on that monitoring system. We focus on violence. This is mainly what the national monitoring randomized that Rami Ben-Benishti and Ron Astor has implemented back in the 90s. We are continuing in a level, and according to the data we have collected, the findings show a moderate and steady reduction of violence over the year in all 3 systems. Meitzav, it's a compulsory, every school in Israel is going through the Meitzav. It's conducted by the National Authority, I translated so I have to read it. Conducted by the National Authority for Measurement and Evaluation in Education, we call it RAMA, it's in Hebrew. It focuses both on academic achievement of students as well as school social and pedagogical climate. So it's also academic achievement and school climate. Yes.
As a mother.
Yeah.
Is it obligatory the child have to do that if he can refuse?
He can refuse.
My child refused to do that.
He can refuse.
Like,
Yeah. The school can't refuse, but the child can.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this is an open system. It is advertised everywhere. So really the school is really eager not to do it, or they are really they don't resist because they can't resist. Yeah. But the lechutzim, they feel tight about, stressed. They're really stressed about it. Mm-hmm.
They don't, right? But they have, this is the question about...
They have to do, what do you say? They have to do the test. If they refuse, nobody will force them. But most of them, they don't ask and they don't know because they have to have some data.
Nobody tells them they can refuse. If they don't ask to refuse, nobody tells them that they
yes.
can.
I think it's the student rights not to do it.
The teachers know.
I think they do. But most students don't ask about it, so the Meitzav, the variables that are examined in the questionnaire are based on the standards. Do you remember the standards with the round? They based on these standards discussed earlier in the directive. It enables each principal to receive a detailed data relevant to the school on its climate and safety issues with the goals of climate and academic improvement. So each principals can see, of course the parents can see, the community can see, everyone can see. It's advertised everywhere. The next one, the third one is Acham. Acham is voluntarily. It's conducted by the Counseling and Psychological Services, what I'm coming from, what we call SHEFI. It measures school climate and rate of violence as well as at-risk behavior. So both sides, remember, wellness and violence. It doesn't measure academic achievement. The information is used to assess the strengths and weaknesses of school and the specific area that they may need attention. The Aham survey is conducted by individual school. We recruit them only if they choose to participate. Students respond in the survey, to the survey question via internet, and the school principal, and only the school principal, receive the results. That's one of my major recruitment calls. We say, you don't have to show it to anyone, just look at it and decide. Usually, of course, they show it first, they show it to the mentor, we analyze it first, and then show it to the class. But nobody sees it, not the supervisors, not their manager, not the Minister of Education, just the principal can see it, so he will be much less stressed to look at the outcomes and implement a program according to it.
I was just wondering, at what level do they participate in this program? So is it very difficult to recruit the schools?
Nowadays not. At the beginning it was very difficult to recruit. Now they didn't believe it's confidential. They thought we're just, now they know it's confidential, so they really, and so it's not hard to recruit, but sometimes the year before they did the Mitzvah, they said, no, not again. We have a data. We don't want to do it. But the Aham have a more precise resolution. They have a class resolution. They have a multiple class. Shikva, the first grade classes, and then they have the school resolution. So it's much more details than a Mitzvah. Like in elementary school, the Mitzvah is only taking the 5th and 6th classes, last 5th. 5 minutes. Oh, okay. Wow. I didn't even show you a lot of data. Okay. So I told you the result of 3 assessment tools really is a moderate and steady reduction of violence over the years. So I just want to show you some data and discuss it. You see the data. I couldn't translate it, so I will tell you a little bit about. This is the rate of positive response, and this is involvement in violent acts. And this is a different kind of violent acts they are involved. Like, I was banned, right? Someone convinced me. Someone convinced other student to ignore me. Someone blackmailed me. Someone threatened to hurt me. Someone hit me hard. Students used a tool or an object to hurt me. I got hurt from another student, and someone pushed me. So you can see the differences between but it's still, all of them are pretty low. And this is from 2015. So it went down from other years. So you can see that we measure different kind of violence. This is also a verbal violence, violence to the school. I forgot the word. Harming the school. There is a word for. Yes, harming property, harming teachers. So we have different kind of violence. This is physical violence. We measure it, and we have a total. You see, the orange. This is middle school, elementary school, and high school. So you can see pushing elementary school is the highest. While I think that blackmail, the high school is the highest. So it's a different kind of measurement. So I want just to show you the decrease it's a moderate decrease in over the years in student response to level of involvement in violent acts through 2008 and 2005. This is 2008, and you can see the numbers here. We went from 17% of violence to 11, and it's not easy task because it's already not very high. We're aiming at lower numbers and lower percentage, but it was very hard work. And we're talking about multicultural company, multicultural state, when a different kind of societies and different kind of cultures. So I'm showing you the national data. Another data, and you can see we divided it to Hebrew speakers, the school of Hebrew speakers, schools of Arab speakers. So you can see they all have a decrease over the years. This is middle school, elementary school, elementary school, middle school, high school. And you see a decrease in number, which is not it is moderate, but it is moderate because we started from not a very high number. So I'm going to show you one of the programs we use. We call it superheroes because in Hebrew, Giborei Al, we can use the word, we can play with the word Al. Al is don't. So superheroes, it's hard to translate, but you can be a hero by reporting and being involved and stopping harmful events. It's fighting bullying. So let me just, this is one of the programs, a very successful program in the school. And I show you a picture from a school. This is the corner, you don't see it here, but this is the corner in the school hall where they negotiate after they fought, after they're fighting, after they have a disagreement. And the superheroes, or Giborei Al, as we say, it's a very successful. Kid can join it. Of course, it's for elementary kids. So, okay, so I want, wow. Okay, I want to show you, oh, I want to show you, so I'm sure, let me see if I have, because I have so many data to show you, and I didn't have time to, okay, I will go to students' report regarding, you remember we checked violence, we monitor violence, now we have the wellness. So student report regarding the quality of support and care they receive from educational stuff, positive response rate. Also, this is elementary school, middle school, high school. So you can see who is the highest, which is the highest age system that is highest in close relation with the teacher, and it's going down over the years. But before that, I want to show you from 2008 to 2015, the national school data, it went up. The same student report regarding quality of support and care they receive from education staff, it went up from 62 to 68. And I know it doesn't sound a lot, but it's a lot of work to do it in international school. I wanted to show you two studies about children at risk, which I won't have time. So I want to just to tell you about the program. And I'm going to ask, does one size fits all? How do we implement in the school the program? One side is evidence-based practices. One side is the standards, the guidelines, everything. And the other side is tailor-made. So we run through them and we try to tailor-made by the guidelines the school program. And we want to go back to Dana. Remember her? I want to show you how we can implement a school system that will make her feel better. So, reducing gaps in students arriving from low socioeconomic background, and I'm talking about something I haven't mentioned here. The basic belief is that every student can. We started with every school count, every student can. And therefore, every student, including in our ones living in disadvantaged region and defined by social criteria, should get an equal starting point for self-realization. So, Dana, if the school system appointed her teacher to call her and said, "Hi, Donna, welcome to our school. How do you feel? I want to meet you even the day before school. I want to appoint a student that will help you in the first day. She will be your guide for everything you'll do in class." This is just a little change that will make a difference in Dana's life from risk-taking path to a normal life and well-being. So I'm sorry, I was very short and I didn't have time to show you a very interesting research about the moderation of school climate to academic achievements and to school bullying. One of them says that if in a good school climate, if you have moderate violence, you will feel that you achieve your goals even if you face it. You achieve, they call it, let me show you that just a minute. Because I know this is your, sorry. This one. Post-traumatic growth, they call it post-traumatic growth, the ability of positive dealing with crisis. If you have a good climate at school, if you have a positive climate at school, even if you have some kind of moderate, and this is the latest research from 2016, even if you have a moderate violence in school, the student reported that they feel they have, they improve from that. And in a negative climate in school, everything collapses. So I'm sorry I was too short, and if I would do it in Hebrew, I would be faster.